Joining me now is NBC News Homeland Security Correspondent Julia Ainsley. Also back with us, Robert McDonald, retired Supervisory Special Agent from the U.S. Secret Service. Julia, I'll start with you here. This notion that the Secret Service Director said he ordered a paradigm shift after the July 13th incident involving the former president. What stood out to you in the remarks that we heard today from these law enforcement leaders?
Yeah, you're right, Aaron. The acting director does not shy away from really strong language. It's similar to what he said before House and Senate committees after the July 13th incident, when he took the helm of the Secret Service after former Director Kimberly Sheetal left in the aftermath of that incident, that he wants a big shift in the way Secret Service handles security because of what he calls the dynamic threat environment they're living in now. But there are two things, Aaron, that he did not directly answer, and I want to flag those. One is that he said that there were counter unmanned aerial systems, which means ways to counter drones. Now, that's different from what he said before Senate committees, that he wanted to increase drone surveillance. So it's unclear. We still have a question about whether or not drones were actually used at this golf course, even though he said they were going to start that. Has that program started specifically for Trump? Because that would have been a way they could have seen this shooter, or attempted shooter. As we know now, he was in the area for 12 hours. Could this have been prevented earlier if they had used aerial surveillance? That's a big question. Another thing is when we heard Garrett Haake say, did the Trump campaign ask for more security, and what are you going to do about that? He just kept saying they have the highest level, and we're going to always reevaluate the threat. But as we've reported here at NBC just in the last couple hours, we understand the Trump campaign, as of this morning, did ask the Secret Service, specifically Acting Director Rowe, for more security, given the fact that this is now the second assassination attempt on Trump. Of course, Trump is coming out and applauding the Secret Service for their response, but there is a sense that when you have two incidents like these, maybe it's time to increase security. Now, I have been told that they've already raised his security far past what it was on July 13th, and you have to think about their other responsibilities to other protectees, including the current president of the United States and Harris, as she campaigns as well, and the vice presidential candidates and others. And they're also preparing for the United Nations General Assembly next week in New York. But essentially, this could turn into a wider conversation, Aaron, in which Congress would need to step in and appropriate more funding for the Secret Service if they are going to get to the level that the Trump campaign wants, and that potentially what Roe wants when he talks about that paradigm shift.
Well, Julia, I'll ask you to stand by here for us, and I want to turn to Robert McDonald, former retired Secret Service supervisory agent. Bobby, just your perspective on this, to hear the Secret Service director. One, we don't typically hear this much from a Secret Service director, and he laid out a fair amount of detail that isn't typically something the public is able to consume. But he also said that he wanted to move from a reactive model to a readiness model, which I thought was striking. How do you hear that from the director of the Secret Service?
Yeah, good afternoon, Aaron. Great to be with you again. You're absolutely right. We don't normally hear from the director of the Secret Service. And quite frankly, one of the issues that was the impetus to the downfall of former Director Cheeto was that she didn't participate in the press conference after Butler. I think it was very impressive today to see the acting director out showing some leadership, leading from the front, letting his troops know that the men and the women of the Secret Service are going to be looked after by him, and that he's going to support the work that they're doing every day. As he said, we just had the RNC, we just had the DNC. You've got the UN General Assembly, which is going to be going on up in New York in the next week or so, with 150 to 190 foreign heads of state. And then we've got the home stretch to the election time. So, yes, we've got 40 protectees that the service takes care of. It is time to shift, I think, a little bit of that paradigm. He is correct that the tried and true methods and policies of the Secret Service do work, and they did work yesterday. But I think it is also time to reboot and reset a little bit to maybe be a little bit more proactive than reactive, as he mentioned in his statement.
So what do you mean by that? More proactive than reactive in an instance like this? There is an element of policing that we know, law enforcement activity that we know is reactive, but there are some things that can be done proactively or ahead of time, if you will. In this instance, when we're looking at protecting a former president or anybody who's a Secret Service protectee, what do you mean by being more proactive? What would that look like? What could that look like? What could have been done differently here from your perspective?
Yeah, I think what we were talking about here is we want to augment the protective advance process. The protective advance process in Butler was a huge failure 60 days ago. And we saw where the gaps were in that communication process, in the liaison with the local police departments, and where things just went wrong. And several things went wrong in that situation. We then had very poor messaging that came out after that, a lack of transparency and why things happened, why those agents weren't put on administrative leave a little bit sooner after going through a catastrophic event like that. So a lot of questions are asked there, and I think the Secret Service needs to use these incidents that have happened to better themselves. As he just said, we have to have a no-fail mission every day. So the fact is that at certain times we're going to have to be reactive if something happens, but we need to be proactive. We need to go out and be on offense rather than defense in the course of our protective measures every day.
As I said, we got a level of detail from the Secret Service director that we don't typically get. He talked about having increased assets on the ground. He walked us through the layered approach that the agents were taking on that golf course, with a front layer moving several holes ahead of where Mr. Trump was playing golf. And we were able to learn earlier today that the security apparatus included counter-assault, counter-surveillance, counter-sniper teams, as well as protective intelligence unit, a drone contingent, in addition to the personal protective detail there. To your mind, given that this was an off-the-record movement, not one that would have been publicly known, and you and I understand the difference between those two sorts of things. An off-the-record movement is, by its nature, slightly more safe than something that might be publicly known. What's your read on the apparatus that was around former President Trump at that moment? Appropriate? Not enough? Did everything go exactly as it should have gone in this instance from your perspective?
Well, in your typical off-the-record movement, as you mentioned, it's whether it's to a golf course or to an ice cream shop or whatever. If the Secret Service and the protectee staff doesn't know until 30 minutes before that event takes place, it's really tough for the bad guy to know that that event is going to take place. So the question I have here is, how did this individual know enough to secrete himself into the woods area or the public area just outside the fence some 12 hours before the former president happened to be at that golf course? The layered approach that he mentioned works here. The floating bubble, if you will, of agents out ahead, agents with the president, the hole he's playing, and then agents on the backside works. Kudos to that officer or that agent who was out ahead and saw that rifle barrel coming out of the woods or coming out of the fence line to be able to react. That individual was doing exactly what they're doing. We've been talking about the lead up to Butler, and perhaps the Secret Service had got a little complacent with its protective advance measures. That guy or gal did their job yesterday, and they did it well. They then engaged the shooter, and he was able to get away, and with the help of a wonderful citizen was able to get that information out. Secret Service is not going to chase after that guy. They're going to be worried about protecting the former president. And the communication and liaison apparatus that was in place there yesterday worked perfectly to get that individual, albeit 45 miles up I-95, which is very close to that golf course and very easy for him to get to. So again, all things considered, a very positive day all the way around by Secret Service and other state, local, and federal partners.
All right, thank you for that. Julia, very quickly before I let you go, that the question has been asked about whether this is an issue of resources, funding, or an allocation of resources, as we heard the Speaker of the House suggest earlier today. Do we have any understanding of, politically, here in Washington, what a next move might be as this investigation continues to roll out in Florida?
There are rumblings behind the scenes, particularly amongst appropriators on the Hill right now, that could be looking at providing more funding to Secret Service. The key thing, though, is that it takes about 2 years to onboard people with the level that you would need in order for them to go through the hiring process, the background process, and be trained, especially if they're in a really high position like a counter-sniper position or someone who's going to be very close to a protectee like Trump. So time might not be on their side, even if they have their money. What we see time and time again is that the Secret Service is pulling from other agencies, namely Homeland Security investigations. We know, for example, next week when the UN General Assembly gets underway, they'll have between 1,500 and 2,000 of those agents just to provide extra help. And of course, as we saw today, they also depend on local law enforcement. But this could be something that we hear more discussions about on the Hill. As we heard today from the acting director, they're doing just about as much as they can, he says, with the resources they currently have available.
All right, Julia Ainsley and Robert McDonald, thank you both for that.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.